All right, let's dive right in. We're looking at a pretty wild question today. Can an AI actually predict what an entire country is thinking? Maybe even better, faster, and cheaper than we've ever been able to before? I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could give an AI just a few details about yourself? Your age, where you live, that kind of thing, and it could accurately predict your take on politics. It sounds a little bit like sci-fi, right? Well, researchers are actually putting this to the test right now. So, to get why anyone would even try this, we've got to look at why we might need it in the first place. For like decades, we've leaned on surveys to figure out what people think. But it turns out getting a truly accurate picture is way, way harder than it looks. And wow, when you look at it, there are just so many ways for traditional surveys to go wrong. They're super expensive, they take forever to conduct, and even worse, they're riddled with potential errors. You might completely miss certain groups of people, or maybe the only people who bother to answer are, fundamentally different from those who don't. All of that can really warp the final results. Okay, so if the old way is kind of broken, what's the fix? Well, some researchers have this wild idea, using those big AI models, large language models, to create something you could call a digital doppelganger. Basically, an AI stand-in that can answer survey questions for a person. And the way it works is actually pretty simple. First, you just give the AI a basic profile of a person. Age, location, you get the idea. Then, the AI digs into all of its training data to build out a whole personality that fits that profile. And finally, you just ask it questions, as if it were a real person. And this AI creation, it has a name. It's called a synthetic respondent. It's not a real person, obviously, but it's an AI simulation built to think and talk like one. So the billion-dollar question is, can these AI stand-ins actually get it right? Now, this isn't just some theory cooked up in a lab. A recent study took this idea and put it through a major real-world stress test in Chile. They basically pitted these AI opinions against the opinions of thousands of actual people to see how they stacked up. Okay, so to test this thing for real, you need something to measure it against, right? You need a gold standard. For this experiment, that was the CEP survey, a super respected, in-person national poll. This is what we call the ground truth. These are the real answers from real humans that the AI had to try and match. And get this, the scale of this experiment was just huge. For every single one of the real human participants, the researchers spun up a bunch of different AI profiles using different models. It all added up to nearly 190,000 synthetic responses. That's an incredible amount of data. So it all comes down to this, really, a head-to-head showdown. On one side, you've got the answers from actual people, and on the other, you have what the AI thinks those people would say. The whole point was to find out just how close can the AI get. All right, the moment of truth. How did the AI actually do? Did these digital doppelgangers pull it off? Let's get to the report card. And right out of the gate, the first big result was a real shocker. The study found that the AI models were incredibly good at predicting how people felt about trust. That complex, messy, very human emotion. And this chart really drives the point home. When people were asked about trusting institutions, the press, the police, the government, the AI's predictions matched the real human answers with over 90% accuracy. That is just stunning for a topic as squishy and human as trust. Okay, so when you see a result that good, the next question is pretty obvious, right? Was this just one genius AI model that cracked the code, or is something bigger going on here? And what's so fascinating here is that it wasn't just one superstar model. The top AIs like OpenAI's GPT-4o and Meta's Llama 4 Maverick were basically tied. And this tells us something huge. This skill isn't locked away in one company's vault. It seems to be a new ability that top-tier AIs are just developing. But hold on. Just because the overall grade is an A doesn't mean it got every single question right for every single person. And that brings us to the really tricky part, bias. So the researchers started peeling back the layers, and when they sorted the results by different demographics, they found something really important. The AI's amazing accuracy wasn't spread out evenly. It was much, much better at predicting the opinions of one specific group. And that group? People between the ages of 45 and 59. Now, why does that matter? Well, it's a huge red flag.
It means the AI might be completely misreading younger generations or seniors or other groups that don't fit that specific mold.
Okay, so let's zoom out. What do we do with this? We've got this powerful new technology that's amazing at some things and kind of biased in others. It really forces us to ask, is this thing a useful tool, a fun toy, or something more like a threat?
I mean, you can see the promise and the peril right here, can't you? On one hand, this could be a super fast, cheap way to get a pulse on what the public is thinking. But on the other hand, it's not great with nuance, especially for minority views, and it could just end up making existing stereotypes even worse. It seems like for now, it's best as a sidekick to traditional surveys, not a replacement.
And you know what? The researchers who did this study, they're the first to say, hey, pump the brakes a little. They wrap things up with a big note of caution. This technology is powerful for sure, but we're still a long, long way from an AI that can truly understand the beautiful, messy, complicated thing that is human opinion.
And that leaves us with the real kicker, doesn't it? As we get better and better at making AIs that can think like us, the most important question isn't what happens when it gets us right. It's what happens when it gets us wrong.